Hello. In connection with the recent murder in Berlin of Zelimkhan Khangashvili, we insist that the authorities of European countries note the fact that the Russian criminal regime kills Chechen refugees even outside their state, and deportations and extraditions to this country are a gross violation of human rights. If the Russian government persecutes Chechens even outside of Russia, then it is adequate to admit that people in Russia are in an even more vulnerable and dangerous situation. We as human rights defenders faced with the problem and injustice against our compatriots when various internationally trustworthy human rights defenders stood up for a particular refugee, but even then, often a refugee doesn't receive recognition of his status from the European authorities and isn't granted protection or asylum. For many years, Chechen refugees have to seek political asylum, challenge the decisions in courts, hear from the migration authorities that they supposedly can receive protection in the territory of large Russia. But for some reason, even in the European Union countries, authorities can't protect them from the attack by killers of the Russian special services. Killed recently Zelimkhan Khangashvili, on whom the Russian secret services attempted murder also earlier, for several years sought political asylum in Germany, which he never received. I hope that now the German authorities were convicted that he was in danger. Do the European authorities really need such a piece of evidence from the Chechens to recognize them as refugees? Should all asylum seekers be shot or poisoned in order to be believed? Why are his brother and nephew still unable to obtain asylum while being in one of the European countries? However, supporters of the Putin regime, such as Timur Dugazayev, who lives in Germany, who openly praise Kadyrov and regularly visit Chechnya, receive asylum or permission to live in the countries of Europe. Thus, European countries are becoming home to Russian agents, while real refugees who are clearly in need of asylum are transferred and deported to Russia. Why is this happening? Why are the authorities of European countries not listening to the well-known human rights organizations that testify to the persecution of a particular Chechen refugee, since the crimes of the Russian administration in Chechnya are documented and known to everyone? Murders of Chechens by Russian special services were committed in Qatar, Austria, as well as repeated assassination attempts and murders in Ukraine, Turkey, and now in Germany. In which country will the next crime of Vladimir Putin happen? Do you still think that human rights are respected in Russia?